Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I would like to also recognize that as Steve Private, that is who have made time to come to this launch. Selamat datang dan selamat tahun baru. Welcome and Happy New Year. As we perhaps wait for some of the others to come, we could just start. The sudden rain has probably slowed the traffic somewhat, and therefore, by way of greeting you, Assalamualaikum, Om Swastiastu, and Shalom. The Resource Center welcomes you, and I bring you greetings from a number of religions that flourish in this country, being recognized having a public place in the social life of the country. And by way of narrating the Indonesian context, I would like to welcome you to the bringing into the public domain a research study that has been undertaken by the Resource Center in the past 9 to 10 months, I believe. I have a written text here that I need to read out. I will perhaps ask the organizers then to put it in the report eventually. But I thought perhaps a more direct and personal addressing of this morning's event would be more appropriate. Going back goes to a bit of history, if I may, of 15 or almost 20 years ago, when a new wave of human rights activism in Southeast Asia came on stage. This was after 25 years previously of constant human rights activism and advocacy, which perhaps at that time was felt that reached its limits in a way, ending up with government and civil society sitting across each other. When ASEAN then called for the setting up of an appropriate ASEAN regional human rights mechanism, a number of activists then set up what was then and eventually became known as the Regional Working Group for a Human Rights Mechanism. Dr. Karam here and myself were one of the among the early activists and friends of Gavi, also from Thailand. And fast forward in this was of course an appeal that came out in Singapore during the ASEAN Minister meeting that the regional human rights mechanism be set up. Fast forward until 2009, the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission for Human Rights was then set up. This was after 10 to 15 years of activism, encouraging policy processes within ASEAN. The Aisha, known as Aisha, the Commissioner from Indonesia here, Ravendi is with us, was set up in 2009. It was quite a turning point in terms of converging all the focus on a policy commitment of ASEAN to further human rights in the Southeast Asian region. And therefore this then led up to a number of, again, activists, academics, business people, and officials, former officials, to then, in 2010, to set up the Human Rights Resource Center, which was set up with the specific intention to look into a specific area which might have been somewhat neglected in the past, because the focus of activism, of human rights activism, was advocacy, and therefore a somewhat neglected area was research in human rights. And that was then the rationale for the resource center to be set up, chaired by former Secretary General of ASEAN, Chairman Ong Kim-yong. We have a number of, I think all the governing board members are here. And the first challenge, of course, was to then position the resource center vis-à-vis the two commissions. By the way, the other one is the ASEAN Commission for Women and Child Rights. So you have here two human rights commissions in ASEAN. Collectively known that as the ASEAN Human Rights Mechanism. And looking into the ASEAN Charter, the Resource Center then took the initiative to produce baseline studies as a contributing effort to allow the HRRC to then be able to formulate policies on the basis of a grounded and collective knowledge of what is happening across the region. We took as our first baseline study the rule of law, which of course comes out from the ASEAN Charter itself, and subsequently followed this baseline study with another baseline study, which then looked into the situation of women and child rights. Subsequently, looking at the priorities that the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights had set itself out, the Resource Center then looked into the area of business and human rights to complement the HRRC's listing of research priorities, which had focused on corporate social responsibility as the number one concern, CSR. Now, the launch of this today's report is in a way a continuation of the first baseline study on the rule of law, which recommended that we look into the implementation of other fundamental rights within ASEAN, including minority religions. Now, the study before you, ladies and gentlemen, Keeping the Faith, is a study based on what we would understand as an interpretive research study on the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion in ASEAN. And therefore, it is a study that looks into not only the legality, but it takes the approach of looking at the meaning of human experience in professing religion, freedom of thought, and conscience. And therefore takes a much more broader approach than perhaps a deterministic kind of an approach, and therefore allows a perception that freedom of thought, conscience, and religion are not quite essentialist, rigid, dogmatic tenets, but would have to be seen in a historic process of changes. The study, of course, pictures the state of freedom of thought and conscience and religion. These are notions that are normally expressed in one breath as a principle that is sourced in the ICCPR, laying out the situation at this stage. Now, it is a very important, of course, study in itself. It is, in many ways, a landmark study, broad and very bold in its theme, and very courageous in its initiative, and it gives you a sense of the ongoing dynamics of religious and freedom of thought in the area. Now, having said that, of course, not everything in ASEAN is as rosy as we might think or perceive. There are still, in some areas of ASEAN, curtailment of international celebrations of religious events. There are still, of course, suppression of religious ethnic related minorities in some areas in ASEAN, including in Indonesia for that matter. But then the study then looks at the whole issue in a very historic and process perspective, which allows us to look into a hopeful future where changes then will lead to the better of circumstances. And it comes at a time when ASEAN will go into its final phase towards reintegration, where greater openness will have to be undertaken, greater interaction between ASEAN members will have to be done, and greater understanding will have to be developed, and therefore it is inconceivable that freedom of religion. Finally, to thank the researchers. We've had a very fortunate pool of creative and talented researchers across the region. The Resource Center has over the past 4 years developed relations with 9, 10, perhaps now, research centers, faculties of law and universities across the region. And the way research is done is through a clustering of researchers that would then focus on a particular theme of a baseline study decided by the governing board. I would like to make special mention, of course, to Dr. Jacqueline Yu from the University of Singapore, who has led this very seminal study. And thanks also the organizers and our advisors for the study for having supervised and perhaps also led this process of dialogue. And of course, finally, I would like to thank the Norwegian Embassy, specifically Ambassador Stig Travik, and very special note of appreciation to you, Ambassador, for keeping faith and with us, with myself, over the past years. My association with your predecessors, Ambassador Eivind Holm, Ambassador Shaw Wilkinson, and Ambassador Bjorn Douglas. We've had a very excellent run, and we thank you for being supportive and believing in us that we would be able to deliver this important study. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Shalom. Thank you.